Tonight we want to pay our respects to As-Sibt al-Akbar, to Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam, who was not present in Karbala, but whose contribution in Karbala is significant. You know, when you study the history of the Hassanis, the awlad of Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam, truly they are madhloom. I think if it was not for the tragedy of Karbala, and if it was not for the fact that the A'imma alayhimus salam all came from the progeny of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, if none of them were Imams and the tragedy of Karbala had not happened, the greater suffering and affliction fell upon the descendants of Imam Hassan alayhi salam. Even after the tragedy of Karbala, Imam Hassan alayhi salam in Karbala, some riwayat said he brought 5 sons, some say there were 6 sons, and some say there were 7 of his sons in Karbala, of whom all were martyred except one who was injured, and he survived. He was taken as a prisoner and he went back to Medina, and he is known in history as Hassan al-Muthanna. And all the descendants of Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam came from him. But they were persecuted so severely by the authorities, even during the times of the 4th and 5th and 6th Imam, that many of them had to flee from Arabia to far regions of the world. Which is why you will see that a lot of the Sadat, a lot of the descendants of the Prophet who are not Shia, who are from the Sunni madhab, they are descendants of Imam Hassan alayhi salam. Because they were so persecuted that even when they fled to other regions, they were not able to tell people that they were Shias and that they were descendants of Imam Hassan. There are some really heartbreaking stories, and tonight is not the occasion for them, of how they even had to hide this from their spouses, from their children, who ended up being raised outside and different from the madhab of the Ahlul Bayt. And some of them, you know, worked hard labor and work, and it was only at the times that they were dying that people found out through parchments and through papers that these were actually the awlad of Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam. So he is truly madhloom through all the ages. And I want to mention tonight in particular, we want to pay our respects to Qasim ibn al-Hassan. But before I speak of Qasim ibn al-Hassan, I want to speak of another son of Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam that we don't often mention. And that was a brother younger to Qasim, who is known as Abdullah bin al-Hassan. Abdullah bin al-Hassan was much younger and was not able to fight in battle. But look at his love for his uncle, Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. We are told that on the day of Ashura, when Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam fell from his horse and he was left all by himself on the hot sands of Karbala, and there was no one left to come to his help, and Sayyidah Zainab alayhi salam was standing at an elevation and watching her brother, feeling the grief, feeling the helplessness, this young boy, we are told, ran out of the tents and began running into the battlefield. And some of the Arbab of Aza and books of Maqtal say that Sayyidah Zainab alayhi salam actually tried to stop the boy, but he still ran into the battlefield. Why? Because he said, I cannot bear to see my uncle in this condition, and I cannot let anyone harm him even though I cannot fight in battle. The books of Aza say that he went and he threw himself on the lap of Hussein. Hussein wept and said to the child, my child, you should not even be here in the battlefield. And the books of Maqtal say that Hurmala, la'natullah alayhi, approached with a sword. And when he swung the sword at Hussein, Abdullah bin al-Hassan raised his 2 arms and said, oh son of an unchaste woman, leave my uncle alone. And the books of Maqtal say that he severed the boy's arm so badly that his arm was hanging off his elbow. He turned to his uncle Hussein and said, oh my Ammu Abbas, look at my Ammu Hussein, look at what they have done to my hands. Hussein hugged the boy and said, patience my child, at which Hurmala took a spear and pierced the boy in his back. The boy gave up his life in the hands of Hussein. The boy lay besides Hussein. Ajrukum ala Allah. This is one of the sons of Hassan. Qasim ibn al-Hassan. We are told that in Karbala, all the Ahlul Kisa were there. Hussein alayhi salam was there himself. Abbas was there representing Ali. Aliyun al-Akbar was there, Shabih of Rasulullah. Zainab was there representing Zahra alayhi salam. Why do we remember Qasim more than all the other sons of Hassan? Because Qasim was a splitting image of Hassan alayhi salam. Qasim absolutely resembled Hassan alayhi salam, so much so that Imam al-Hussein, just like he used to say, when I thirst to do ziyarah of my grandfather, I look at Aliyun al-Akbar. Whenever he wanted to see his brother Hassan, he would look at Qasim. We are told that on the night of Ashura, when Imam al-Hussein said to all his ashab and ansar, that you will all be martyred tomorrow and none of you will remain tomorrow. Qasim was one of those young boys who stood up and he said to his uncle Hussein, وَأَنَا مِمَّنْ يُقْتَلْ غَدًا. Will I also be blessed with martyrdom, O my uncle? Hussein does not reply Qasim and say yes. He says, O Qasim, كَيْفَ الْمَوْتَ عِنْدَكَ. O Qasim, what is death to you? A 13-year-old boy. 13-year-old. And Qasim is so zealous to fight. He says, Ya am ahalla min al-asal. It is sweeter to me than honey. Then again he asks, O Am, will I be killed as well tomorrow? Hussein still does not tell Qasim, O Qasim, you will be killed. He says, O Qasim, even your young brother Aliyun al-Asghar will be killed tomorrow. To which the books of Maqtal say that Qasim was alarmed. He said, O Am, will the enemies come into the tents? I would say, O Qasim, the enemies will not come into the tents, but they will certainly set it on fire. The day of Ashura came, Ajrukum ala Allah, Ajrukum ala Allah. The books of Maqtal tell us that as the people kept coming to Hussein and asking for permission to go for Shahadat, Qasim kept coming to ask for permission, but Hussein would not give him permission. Some of the books of Maqtal say that Qasim would kiss the hands of Hussein. Sometimes he would kiss the feet of his uncle Hussein. He would beg him and plead him, Ya Am, give me permission to fight. But Hussein would say, no, you are the Shabi of Hassan. I will not let you go and fight. When Qasim despaired and went back to his mother, some of the books of Azza and some of the Arbab of Azza say that Farwa remembered that when Hassan alayhi salam was leaving this world, he left a small amulet, he left a ta'weez with Farwa and said, Oh Farwa, when the world closes in on you and there is calamities befalling you, open this, you will find a solution to it. When Farwa opened the ta'weez, there were 2 letters in it. One was for Qasim and one was for Hussein. Qasim opened the letter of his father in which it said, O Qasim, when you are reading this letter, I will not be in Karbala. Qasim, you are my representative in Karbala. Qasim, do not hold yourself back from Shahadat. Qasim was overjoyed. Qasim took the other letter to his uncle Hussein. I do not know how Hussein felt when he saw a letter through time in the writing of Hassan. Hussein must have kissed the letter. The letter said, Oh Hussein, there is no day like your day, O Aba Abdullah. Do not stop Qasim from going for jihad. Now Hamid ibn Muslim says, by Allah, I saw Hussein and Qasim hugging each other, and Hussein wept so much with Qasim that Hussein became unconscious. And when Hussein came to, he said to Qasim, Oh Qasim, go back and get ready for jihad. Hussein called for a sanduk. Hussein called for a box in which there were some tabarrukat. Farwa dressed her son like a bridegroom. Farwa took Qasim around and bade farewell to all his aunts and all his sisters. When Qasim came out to the ready for jihad, Hussein took out a white cloth from the sanduk. Then he tore it in 2 pieces. He tied one on the forehead of Qasim and made an amama. He put the other one on the chest of Qasim. My dear brothers and sisters, do you know what Hussein is doing? Hussein is putting kafan on Qasim. Oh Qasim, your body will be trampled. Hussein is preparing Qasim for shahadat. Ajrukum ala Allah. Qasim was placed on the horse. Qasim sat up on the horse. He was a young boy. His feet could barely touch the stirrup of the horse. When Qasim came to the Maidan, the books of Azaz tell us there were 2 mothers who stood outside waiting for their sons when they went out for jihad. One was Aliyun al-Asghar. When he went out to get water, Rabab stood out waiting for the baby to return. The other was Farwa. She stood waiting for Qasim.
Qasim went for jihad into the Maidan. Hussein is watching the Shabi of Hassan, the Yatim of Hassan fighting. Hamid ibn Muslim says, when Qasim entered the battlefield, فَكَانَ وَجُهُ كَأَنَّهُ شَقَّةٌ مِّنَ الْقَمَرِ. It was as if we were in a dark night and suddenly the full moon came out in its full glory. So handsome was this young boy. He came out and began reciting his Raj. In tankiruni fa'ana ibnul Hassan, fa'ana ibnul Hassan. If you do not know me, then I am the Yatim of Hassan. Sibtul Mustafa al-Mu'tamin. And Hassan is the grandson of Rasulullah. Who is there who will fight me? Umar ibn Sa'd says to Azraq, go fight the boy. Azraq says, he is a child, why would I fight him? He sends one of his sons and Qasim sends him to Jahannam. He sends another son and Qasim kills the other one. He keeps sending all his sons and Qasim sends them all to Jahannam. Azraq is enraged, he comes out to the battle to fight. Qasim kills him as well. Now Hamid ibn Muslim says, there was a shaqi, there was a wretched man sitting besides me who was called Amr bin Sa'id al-Nafaili. He stood up and said, by Allah, I will kill this boy. Hamid ibn Muslim says, I said to him, why would you kill such a young handsome boy? By Allah, I would have not killed him if he came to me. The man says to Hamid ibn Muslim, he says, I will kill him to hurt Hussein. By Allah, I will hit him with such force that Hussein will feel the pain of this child. The coward waited in ambush for Qasim. The books of Azhar say at one point one of the straps of Qasim's sandal broke. Qasim bent down while he was on the horse to fix the strap of his sandal. This coward came from behind with an iron rod. The books of Maqtal say he hit Qasim with such force on his back that the boy's spine broke. When Qasim fell down, he called out, Ya Amma, adrikni! Ya Amma, adrikni! Oh my uncle, come to my help! But Hussein stood up. Hamid ibn Muslim says, by Allah, I did not see Hussein raging like a lion the way he came to the body of Qasim. I did not see Hussein swooping like an eagle on the enemies like he came to Qasim. But Hamid ibn Muslim also adds, he says, every shaheed who fell, he called out only once, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah, adrikni. He says, this was one wahid shaheed who kept calling out, Ya Amma adrikni, Ya Amma adrikni. Why? Because when Hussein began charging to the enemy, he says, the side from the right galloped to the left, the side from the left Maysara ran to Maymana, and as the hooves of the horses broke the bones of the boy, he kept calling out, Wa Amma, my uncle, come to my help. Hussein saw a cloud of dust. He kept calling out, Qasim, where are you, my son? Hamid ibn Muslim says, when the dust finally settled, Qasim's spirit had left his body. There were no calls of Wa Amma adrikni. Hussein sat down at the body of Qasim. He began crying and saying, Qasim, Qasim, Azza wallah, Antawi antad'uni fala ujibak. Qasim, if only you knew how much it pains me that you kept calling out to me but I could not respond. Aw ujibaka fala anfauk. Or that when I responded I was of no help to you. Now Hamid ibn Muslim says, it is ajib how Hussein lifted the body of Qasim. The body of the Qasim was so shattered. He said, Hussein first hugged the boy and placed his chest on his chest. Then he took Qasim's left arm and placed it under his right arm. Then he took Qasim's right arm and placed it under his left arm. Then Hamid ibn Muslim says, by Allah, when Hussein took the body of Qasim back, this boy whose feet could not touch the stirrup of the horse, his feet were now dragging on the sands of Karbala. Wa Hassana. Hussein brought the body of his brother's yatim. Zainab brought Farwa out. Come, O Farwa, your Qasim has returned. The women came out doing matam. Wa walada, wa qillata nasira, wa ghurbata. Hussein took the body of his Qasim. He placed it besides the body of Ali al-Akbar. He sat besides them. He looked to the heavens, Mahbud. Hussein has lost all his sons. Wa madluma, wa qasima, wa ghurbata. Matame Hussein, Ya Hussein.